Hello students, myself Milan Patel, Assistant Professor at LJIET Institute of Engineering and Technology. Today's topic is about pointing. So let's begin. First of all, we will see introduction of pointing. Okay, pointing is the finishing of mortar joints in brick or stone masonry construction. Okay, pointing is the implementing of joints to a depth of 10 mm to 20 mm and filling it with better quality mortar in desired shape. Okay, this is how pointing can be done. It is done for cement mortar and lime mortar joints. Okay. Now let's see the purpose of pointing. The pointing word not only protects the mortar joints from the adverse effect of the atmosphere, but also improves the appearance of the wall by providing the pattern of joint, their thickness, colors, and texture prominently. Okay. In exposed masonry, joints are considered to be the weakest uh, point, you can say, and the most vulnerable spots from which rainwater and dampness can enter. To resist this, pointing is necessary. That's why pointing is done in the wall. Okay, now let's see the various mortar for pointing. Okay, pointing work is usually done by lime mortar or cement mortar. If you use lime mortar, the proportion of mortar should be 1 to 2. Okay, here 1 is fat lime and 2 is sand or surki material. Okay, second is cement mortar. If you use cement mortar, the proportion should be 1 to 3. Okay, here 1 is cement and 3 is sand. Okay, the mortar for lime pointing is made with fat lime by grinding it with sand or surki in a mortar mill. Okay, so if you do consider the uh, type of mortar as lime mortar, you have to use the fat lime. Okay, and uh, you have to grind it with sand or surki in a mortar mill to get the mixture. Okay, and after that you have to add the water and use for pointing work. Okay, now let's see preparation of surface for pointing. Okay, what are the points to be done to prepare the surface for pointing? First is for new work. Okay, all the joints are racked down to a depth of 20 mm while the mortar is still soft. Okay, the surface and joints are then cleaned and thoroughly wetted. Okay, so this is how preparation of surface is done in the new work. If this is old work, all the pointing and superfluous mortar on the surface and the joints are removed first. Okay, then the joints and surface are cleaned and then thoroughly wetted. Okay, so this is how you have to prepare the surface for old work. Okay, now let's see method of pointing. Okay, what are the points to be done in pointing? After preparing the surface, as discussed above, a mortar is carefully placed in joints using small trowel. Okay, the placed mortar should be of desired shape. Whenever the fresh mortar is placed in the joints, it should be pressed hardly to gain a strong bond with old interior mortar. Okay, and then the pointed surface is kept wet for at least a week or till it sets after application. Okay, so these are the various steps of pointing. Okay, now let's see the various types of pointing, in which first is flush pointing, second is recess pointing, third is rub, key or groove pointing, fourth is bedded pointing, fifth is struck pointing, sixth is tuck pointing, seventh is V pointing, and eighth is weather pointing. We will discuss all these types of pointing one by one, starting with flush pointing. In this type, mortar is pressed hard in the rake joints and by finishing off flush with the edge of masonry units. The edges are neatly trimmed with trowel and straight edge. It does not give good appearances, but flush pointing is more durable because of resisting the provision of space for dust, water, etc. Due to this reason, this method is extensively used. Okay, this is how flush pointing is looks like. Okay, that's all about flush pointing. Second type of pointing is recess pointing. In this case, mortar is placing back by 5 mm or more from the edges. During placing of mortar, the face of the pointing is kept vertical by a suitable tool. Okay, this type of pointing gives very good appearances. Okay, this is how recess pointing looks like. Okay. Third type of pointing is rubbed key or groove pointing. This is a modification of flush pointing in which groove is formed at its mid height by a pointing tool like this. It gives very good appearances. Okay, this is how keyed pointing or rub pointing or groove pointing looks like. Okay, next type of pointing is beaded pointing. It is formed by steel or iron with concave edges. Okay, like this. It gives good appearance, but it will damage easily when compared to the other types of pointing. Okay, this is how beaded pointing looks like. Next is stroke pointing. This is a modification of flush pointing in which the face of the pointing is kept inclined like this, with its upper edge pressed inside the face by 10 mm, which drains water easily. Okay, this is how stroke pointing looks like. It is usually done on the terraces, okay, to reduce the penetration of rainwater into the you can say slab. Okay, next type of pointing is called as tuck pointing. In this case, mortar is pressed in the rack joint first and finishing flush with the face. Okay, while the press mortar is green, or you can say soft, groove or narrow channel is cut in the center of groove, which is having a 5 mm width and 3 mm depth. This groove is then filled with the white cement putty kept projecting beyond the face of the joint by 3 mm. Okay, if the projection is done in mortar, it is also called as bastard pointing, or you can say half tuck pointing. Okay, this is how tuck pointing looks like. Okay, this portion, okay, is called as white cement pointing. Okay, next type of pointing is called as V pointing. These V pointing are similar to a key pointing. Okay, here the shape of groove is V type. Okay, the mortar filled and pressed into the joint. After that, V-shaped groove is formed in the joint by use of V-shaped tool. Okay, so this is how the V pointing looks like. Okay, and the last type of pointing is called as weathered pointing. This is made by making a projection in the form of V shape like this. Okay, but it is the in the outside of the wall. Okay, it is one type of projection on the wall. Okay, V shape formation is done, but on the projection on the wall. Okay, this is called as weathered pointing. Okay, it is also used on the terraces. Okay, these are the various types of pointing. That's all about the pointing. Thank you for watching.